Well, a warm welcome this morning. You join us once again for the International GT Open, 3 weeks on from our first round at Portimao. We arrive at the legendary SPA-FRANCORCHAMPS, home, of course, to the Belgian Grand Prix. And today it's home to GT3 Racing for our very first GT Open 500 race and our very first qualifying session of the weekend as well. The story so far, it's Dean McDonald and Zach Meakin, top of the championship on 25 points. And, of course, harbour memories from last year. Not altogether positive for Dean McDonald, who, of course, was aligned with James Kell. And despite having a lightning start, a technical issue brought their chances of a race win to a close. Could be a whole different affair, though, this time. But equally, Pietro Armani back with a bang after a stellar round last time out. He's got a slightly different teammate, though, this time with Norbert Siedler lining up alongside him in place of Alex Fontana. Of course, a family affair in that team as well at ZRS, with Eleanor, the team manager, only in her early 20s, and her brother as well, Ricardo, the head mechanic. And there was a lot of emotion shared in that garage, fresh from their GT Cup Europe stint last year, and they've now promoted themselves to the big cheese event. That is, of course, the International GT Open, and are now in contention, maybe, for the championship title at the end of the season. But there's a long way to go between now and then. George Morgan here, back in the commentary box, bringing you this first session of qualifying. Joining me once again as well, Chris Stevens.
Hello, George, and yeah, 500-kilometre race weekend, the first of two that we have this season. Double points on offer, and so qualifying works a little bit differently. It's the average of the two drivers that is going to set the grid. So we have the first drivers out in this Q1 session, Q2 a little bit later on in the day. We'll work out the averages and get ourselves a grid for the what should be a 72-lap race tomorrow around the Spa circuit. Interestingly, it seems like everyone in this session amongst the Pro-Am teams have opted for their bronze driver for this Q1 session. Now, maybe that's because we've had a little bit of rain this morning. Maybe the track still isn't 100% dry, and they want to keep their quick driver for the more ideal conditions later on. Or maybe there's going to be rain later. To be honest, we've stopped trying to guess what the weather is going to do around here. But nonetheless, we're in for a fascinating session. We have 31 cars that are taking to the track this morning. We have the BMW that joins us for this season from PTT Racing, that was due to be with us in Portimao, but slight delay in getting their car, so they make their debut here this weekend. We have the Aston Martins back again from Blackthorn and from the Goodspeed team, and our usual friends at Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren, Porsche, Audi and Lamborghini, and the Scuderia Valour Corsa team have actually been able to put some laps in this weekend. There was an engine blowout in Portimao on Thursday night that forced them to withdraw from the entire race weekend, which is such a shame to see. But we have some new teams as well, like this one, the Pedersen Racing Squad, Mikkel Pedersen's own team, sharing the car with Lars Pedersen, no relation there. I think it might be the Danish equivalent of Smith.
Yeah, quite possibly. Of course, marking their first stint in this championship. Of course, Mikkel, who's competed in WEC and also GT World Challenge Europe, lined up alongside Lars, who is a Danish GT Championship contender from back in 2021, also competing in WEC and the Le Mans 24-hour at, by equal measure, Le Mans Cup as well. We also welcome back Christian Mansell, Maxi Goertz. So I was chatting to Christian as well, asking him a little bit about the weather situation. He, of course, was hoping that we would just have rain overnight and nothing during the course of the day. It's interesting, actually, speaking to a few of the drivers, some actually wishing for a little bit of wet weather. I got talking to Tom Leben and Tom Empson from Elite Motorsport. They came into it a bit mystified as to why they were 3 seconds off the pace in free practice, and they were suggesting rain might actually be our grand equaliser.
Yes, I did speak to the Toms as well yesterday. They were a bit bemused as to where their pace has gone. Hopefully they've been able to find some in the Elite garage overnight. Christian Mansell still sharing the car with Maxi Goertz, despite the apparently just over the border there's some big race happening this weekend, some 24-hour thing. Small amateur event, I don't know if anyone's heard of it, but Maxi Goertz has decided not to take part in that one and focus fully on the championship campaign here in GT Open, and unfortunately Alex Fontana couldn't make that same decision, just owing to the customers that he has, and he's got 2 bronze drivers that he's working with over at the Nürburgring, and so he kind of had to prioritize that. And then actually in GT Cup, the younger sibling series to this championship, we've got Paul Meyer, who's doing both. But I think it's great that Gertz has decided to prioritize this championship. It shows where his own personal priorities lie.
Statement of intent, I think, Chris.
Definitely.
And I think based on what we saw last year, of course, he was alongside Levente Reves, who went on to win the title. Obviously, if Gertz was behind the wheel, figuratively speaking, he would have been crowned champion, equally if he did the whole campaign alongside Levente. Obviously feels that he wants to do it this time, and having a great talent like Christian Mansell, we talk about the youth coming through the International GT Open. We got swathes of it again here, Chris, with the likes of Pietro Armani stepping up as well, who I've got to say is really taking the GT3 racing like a duck to water, it has to be said. And equally as well, we've got a debutant here this weekend driving in a Mercedes equally for Iron Lynx. It is, of course, we've got Theodore, who is joining us this weekend, who is jumping into the Mercedes AMG GT3. Of course, he himself, a fantastic young talent as well, and I look forward to seeing him in action. Theodore Jensen from Denmark. Equally, we've got 3 Danish drivers joining the grid if we include the Petersons as well. But Theodore Jensen, ELMS champion, competed in ALMS as well at the same time. Prior to that, competed in Euro Cup 3. But a fantastic driver to watch, and definitely one for the future, and he will be going to the Le Mans 24 Hour as well.
Yeah, he will, along with his LMP3 teammates from last year. That was a very heavily compromised lap for Dean McDonald. We saw caught up in an awful lot of traffic, having gone fastest in the first sector. So the McLaren driver will be a bit annoyed about that, but he's got plenty of time left. There's still 15 minutes left in this session to try and usurp Tommaso Mosca and Christian Mansell, who are currently ahead of him in the timing order. It is Hubert Demetko, though, who's gone fastest in the first sector, though, in the brand spanking new, fresh off the block, BMW M4 GT3 Evo from PTT. We were anticipating this car in Portimao, and the Team Porsche Marcin Krakowski, just one of the most enthusiastic figures that we've had come into the championship. He is so happy and delighted to be here. And look at this Demetko. This is actually a Pro-Am car, because Hubert Demetko, only a couple of years into his racing career at the ripe age of 34, and it's his teammate Fabien De Bianca, the 17-year-old, who is equally inexperienced but a fresh face in the world of racing. And so Demetko ending up 8th fastest there. I almost wonder, because Demetko actually set the speed trap quite significantly quicker than anyone else. I wonder if he just outbraked himself into the Le Mans chicane, Le Combe chicane, sorry, and that's why he ended up with both the speed trap and the purple first sector there.
It is a possibility. Equally, though, for PTT, it's a great return. They've had immense success in GT Cup Europe in the past, so it's great to see them here racing in the International GT Open back under the GT Sport umbrella. A little bit of traffic down below. Of course, we have Stanislav Jedlinski getting a little bit close. In fact, in the number 5, he is, of course, alongside Christian Kolzanowski once again this weekend. As you so rightly say, though, Chris, a lot of the bronze drivers taking the initial stint here in qualifying. So naturally, a little bit of dodging and weaving. Rodrigo Testa now making his way down through towards the heavy braking zone at the bus stop. He's got the Elite Racing Ferrari in front. Mansell is in the pits at the moment, of course, with the fastest time at the 2:15.406. But remember, it's not... Well, essentially, if they finish here in this session, P1, it's not a foregone conclusion that Mansell and Gertz will be on pole. It's going to be down to Gertz later on to try and make that happen. Tommaso Mosca in second place as well. Very fine margins, 19 thousandths of a second between those two. I got a chance to catch up with Tommaso Mosca earlier into the weekend, and we got talking about his move to, becoming a Ferrari factory driver. And he was talking about the high emotions, and this came off the back of his stellar run in the International GT Open last season, proving, showing, displaying his talent. And he advised us, told us that when he got the call, he was crying. as soon as he had the word that he was going to be signing as a Ferrari driver. A hugely emotional moment. And we also welcome back Yifei as well under the GT Sport umbrella, also a Ferrari factory driver.
Yeah, he's standing in for Thomas Neubauer for this weekend. He'll be out in Q2. Dean McDonald going very well in the first sector once again, but it was Rodrigo Testa there who's put it provisionally 4th fastest in the Lamborghini. It's much more what the SVC squad ordered. And Mackenzie Cresswell, actually 3rd fastest at the moment in the 3rd Greystone GT McLaren for this week here. And Mackenzie Cresswell, only his 2nd weekend in a GT3 race car, known for his GT4 exploits over the last couple of years with the Elite squad. Came up through the McLaren Elite development partnership that they have. And but of course Elite doesn't run a McLaren in GT3 competition, so Cresswell's ended up here at Greystone and showing an awful lot of speed here early on, showing the car with Jaden Kelly for this weekend. They'll be out in select rounds throughout this year.
Yeah, well, from one Greystone to another, now right on board with the Flying Scotsman as he now makes his way into the pits. An early purple sector for Dean McDonald. He won't carry the lap through, though. We alluded to their electrifying pace last year. Of course, it was Dean McDonald and James Kell who were aligned. Oh, there's another McLaren, though. And
that's the Optimum car.
The Optimum, yes. Of course, rejoining us for this round in the championship, Morgan Tilbrook behind the wheel of this one, alongside Ben Barnacote, who comes in as the former ALMS GT champion from back in 2022, also a winner in the Golf 12 Hours, the IMSA Sports Car GTD Pro Championship as well at the same time, and was an LMP2 winner in the Le Mans 24 Hour back in 2024. It doesn't get much better than that, CV, Chris.
No, it certainly doesn't. Ben Barnacote, a fantastic driver for Lexus, but does get to do these McLaren outings every once in a while. Of course, no Lexus here in a lot of European championships, in fact, and it's just out of La Source, where there may well still be some damp patches. In fact, we can still see, actually, there are a few, and a little bit of gravel towards the racing line as well, so maybe that contributed to Morgan's little pirouette there, but a harmless spin for the McLaren. So we'll continue on its way, and then we've got a brief lull in track action here. 10 minutes left on the clock, and it is currently Christian Mansell fastest, the Formula 2 convert, and yeah, 19 thousandths of a second ahead of that car, Tommaso Mosca. And you think about how long the lap is. It's 2 minute 15 lap time, 7 kilometers of racetrack, 19 corners, and separated by that little amount of time. In fact, it's half a second that covers the top 5 at the moment, and in there you've got the Mercedes, you've got the Ferrari, you've got 2 of those McLarens and a Lamborghini in there as well. So once again, some incredible diversity at the front of the field. It's Hubert Domeco who's currently fastest of the Pro-Am runners, and then Thomas Magjarsh, in his first appearance of the season, was due to be with us in Portimao for the Goodspeed Aston Martin crew, the car that he shares with Piotr Vera, but he was unable to make Portimao in the end, and so this is his first appearance of the season and currently fastest of the AM runners. So that is very impressive there from the Polish squad.
Yeah, really, really strong. And I'd say he's ahead of some esteemed competition as well in the other classes with Pro-Am as well.
Yeah, quicker than this man.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Which is quite the statement, because obviously, I mean, Charles Bateman, by equal measure, very talented. Currently down in P12 and looking to improve, of course, was alongside Henrique Chavez last time out at Portimao. Of course, he's been subbed out this time. But Johnny Adam also joining the series this time here at Spa. Yeah,
Johnny Adam, the full season driver. Although I've been told that there may be yet more jiggery-pokery in the schedules, actually. So we may see more of Chavez than we were initially anticipating. Actually, Johnny Adam was telling me that he drove here with the Greystone crew because his flight to Brussels got cancelled yesterday, and so they drove overnight to Brussels, I think on Thursday evening. So
quite a few drivers have had some interesting trips to get here this weekend, including me as the commentator as well. I mean, it's a fairly long. I mean, I got up out of the house. I woke up at 2 a.m. and then left the house at 2:30 in the morning. So that was how my journey started from Wales to get to Spa. Anyway.
We didn't have the smoothest of flights over. I mean. I don't know what BA's been doing this week, but Christian Mansell fastest in the middle sector here in the Team Motor Park Mercedes. car that has 2 podium finishes, 2 second-place finishes to its name after the first meeting of the season in Portimao. So Mansell braking for the bus stop at chicane. We'll see Maxi Goertz out in this car in Q2 later on today. But Mansell currently fastest in the session. Is he going to lower the benchmark even further? Yes, he does, by 0.7 of a second. Lovely lap there from the Australian. It's a 2:14.708 as Libor Milotta gets a little bit wide on the exit of the curve, Paul Frere. Now, Milotta was the fastest driver in the bronze test this morning. And we're actually starting to see that pace on track because he's currently second in the Pro-Am category.
Yeah, we're going to chase down Darmetko at the moment, but of course he does have a McLaren in front of him. I don't think that will cause him too many issues. He has backed out of it though, and there seems to be something hanging off as we're looking at it, the left-hand side of the car, the front nose. We'll take a look at this now. I wonder, oh, just treading into that gravel trap, hence why he brought that lap to an end. But he will have time to go again. Christian Mansell, though, 4 years on from his stint in the Euro Formula Open Championship, returning, of course, under the GT Sport Organisation banner as we ride on board here with the BMW making its way down through towards the bus stop chicane. Obviously, he'll be looking to warm up for yet another lap, but going back to Mansell, has found new life, has breathed new life, took a year out from racing just to get his head straight after his departure from Formula 2. And decided to focus fully in sports cars and has really taken to it like a duck to water. And again, more sways of youth coming through as now we see, oh my goodness, that is the ZRS Porsche.
He got air.
Yeah.
He got full-on air there, did Pietro Armani. Yeah. So I'll have to do a little check and sweep under the car, I would imagine, after the session. Yeah. That was a very adventurous moment. Flying through
Corbeil Paul Frere, indeed. But will now look to regather himself and go again. Currently sits P6. Is right in the heat of the fight for the top spot. But it's still 0.7 of a second here between Mansell and Mosca at the top of the shop. Still a sole, the only 2:14 that we have seen registered so far. I think Libor Milotta might have got a little bit caught out at the end of Sector 1 as well, because he was briefly purple as Tom Leben goes 5th fastest ahead of Dean McDonald as well this time. So Elite, despite being 3 seconds off, they believed, in the early stages of the weekend, they're now joining the contingent in the 2:15s as Mansell now looks to warm up for yet another lap, taking that wider line to give him that extra little bit of straight line speed and better pace coming down in towards turn 1, where he'll look to hook up the La Source section. Libor Milotta showing a personal best inside the first sector as well. Darmetko by equal measure. Tom Leben, incidentally, purple in the last sector over that last lap that granted him the 2:15 to move inside the top 5. As now we see Mansell about to tackle Eau Rouge and Radion once again.
And Tom Lebon turning 21 today.
Happy birthday,
Tom. And also happy birthday to Marcello Hahn. Yes. 58 today as well. All sorts of celebrations going on in the paddock at the moment. We've got a yellow flag there on the Kemmel Straight. The LED board was flashing. Nothing obvious we can see from the pictures. And I wonder if that's maybe for some gravel. Looks like we're going to have our answer. And it is the Laurent de Meus AF Corsa Ferrari that has pirouetted in the middle of the Lecombe chicane. But again, a fairly harmless spin. And according to our timing screen, it's green flags flying there at the moment. Laurent de Meus and his teammate Vincent Abril taking a visit to Thierry Nouvel's workshop yesterday, which is a stone's throw from here.
2 personal bests at the top of the shop for Christian Mansell and for Tommaso Mosca. So it's 38.4, still near enough 0.2 of a second faster. Christian Mansell, 1.5 at the very least. Pietro Armani, though, digging deep at the same time, because he currently sits now in P7, has been dethroned from that top 5. And after receiving that airtime, he's looking to show that he's got more to bring to the table. Crosses the line and goes only 1 place higher, though. 6th fastest ahead of Dean McDonald, though, by the same exchange. Mosca losing time in that middle sector. That's a 66.1. That is way off where he needs to be. Whereas Rodrigo Testa was setting 63s in that middle sector. We got Christian Mansell, though, equally 4 seconds better in that middle sector in comparison to Mosca. There he is now coming around Blanchimont, the Aussie, looking to try and rumble in yet another stellar result after taking back-to-back P2s alongside Max Goertz at Portimao last time, knocking on the door for those race wins. as they now venture into the final 3 minutes and 20. Again, taking that wide line.
How much more space could he have taken on the... Right,
Well,
he was over the drain.
They're literally, of course, it's all about getting that exit out of the final corner. They just want to maximise the pace, don't they, heading down through towards turn one. So you can understand it as we now ride on board with Good Speed Racing.
Yeah, the Aston Martin, a couple of BOP changes after Portimao, over the rear ride height and also to the turbo boost as well. It's been a while since we've had an Aston Martin in the championship, so just some fettling, but overall the balance of performance has worked out fantastically across the manufacturers, and we have 8 of them on the grid here this weekend. It's looking incredibly even out there, particularly when you look towards the sharp end of the field. So the ZRS crew victorious on debut, and it is a personal best for Pietro Armani in the first sector, and also a very good middle sector as well from the Italian driver, but it is not a personal best though, but still could be in a position to improve his lap time. Remember, it is Norbert Siegler who is standing in for Alex Fontana this weekend, but he's being held up there by the Fark Auto Tech Porsche. I think that was the number 12 car of Joel Monegro, and so Armani has to back out of that one. That was in one of the worst places on the racetrack for that to happen, into the flat-out Blanchimont. He took even more than Christian Mansell there. He had a wheel on the grass there, basically.
Well, he knows that this is basically the last chance saloon, Chris, so everything needs to be put into this lap, and you just see him backing off there, trying to allow for as much clean air as possible for his final stab at a qualifying lap for this Spa 500. Veselaho now into 9th place now this time as part of the pro contingent, and sits now just inside that top 10 ahead of Libor Malotta, the highest pro-am in the field, as Dean McDonald looks to also register a fast final sector after setting in a personal best inside the middle sector of a 62.4. That was faster than Pietro Armani's middle sector last time out, so that's saying something, because Armani was on a personal best himself as well. And indeed, the Flying Scotsman up into 3rd fastest by equal measure, but he's still behind Mansell and Mosca. But it's Armani on the rise again as he also nestles in a personal best inside sector 1.
That could start to the lap there. It was a bit squirrely under braking for Armani. He breaks down into the long Rivage corner, or Bruxelles as it is sometimes referred to. Swing it left into Speaker's Corner, or the Jackie X curve. Take that little bit of curve and then heads down towards Pouhon, where there is still a little bit of water there on driver's left. Pouhon referring to the natural springs around this track. And it is 20 seconds left on the clock, so this is very much last chance saloon now. Into the Fagnes chicane now for Pietro Armani. Look it right, and then into the left-hander. And don't take any of the gravel on the right-hand side. He got very, very close to it, really flirting with danger there as he makes his way into Stavolo, and then keep it pinned as the checkered flag is now out. We'll get the second timing split shortly as he comes out of curve Paul Frere, and it is a good middle sector there for Armani. Not necessarily a personal best, but he's very, very close to it. Making his way up towards Blanchimont. No traffic in front of him this time. Stunning to watch a car through there. A couple of cars making their way through the chicane, but they should be out of the way by the time Armani gets to the apex. Thumping the curb on the right-hand side, and now drives it up towards the timing line. Where is this going to put Armani as he meets the timing line now and doesn't improve, unfortunately, so lost a lot of time in that final sector.
Really committed to that initial curb coming through the bus stop now as we look at Tommaso Mosca, 62.4 in that middle sector. He was on a personal best inside the first sector as well. So the Italian now looking to dig deep for a big result to try and topple Christian Mansell at the very least in provisional P1. As we've said, the checkered flag is out. This is the last chance saloon for all those drivers now as Mosca commits immensely to that initial curve coming through the bus stop. Has he done enough in the final sector to potentially go to P1 ahead of Christian Mansell? No! Wow. Still remains in the 215s. Not enough. It's still Mansell standing alone in the 214s, and it's a very calculated 214.708 as well, capitalising in the initial. We wait for Mackenzie Cresswell as well on his lap. He hasn't nestled in a personal best at all in those first 2 sectors, so I would imagine bringing it home in P4. But an immense job taken by Motor Parkers. Now Cresswell crosses the line. Is there any improvement whatsoever? Not quite. Fourth fastest is where he stays. It's Christian Mansell, first fastest in Q1, ahead of the SPA-500 with one more qualifying session to go.
Oh, that's a mega effort from Mansell. He's quicker than a Ferrari factory driver and a McLaren factory driver. And shout out Mackenzie Cresswell, second race weekend in this car, and he is a tenth of a second away from Dean McDonald in the sister car from Greystone. That is a stonking effort there. The Lamborghini up there in fifth position as well. And Thomas McJarsh, fastest bronze driver in the field, eighth position overall in the Goodspeed car. That is a brilliant effort.
It's given them a good platform, hasn't he, for the next qualifying session coming up later on. So well done, McJarsh, for that. And Libor Malotta managing to correspond with the bronze test earlier on this morning and take the highest Pro-Am position ahead of Hubert Darmetko, who sits P2 in Pro-Am, but overall P11. There is Christian Mansell, though, the man who's managed to make it happen. What a stellar performance in qualifying, as we now take you through the results at the end of Q1. Remember, of course, average qualifying lap times to decide the grid. Our next session comes up this afternoon. It's Christian Mansell with a 2:14.708, the only 2:14 on the grid, and ahead of Tommaso Mosca by 7/10 of a second. The Italian Ferrari factory driver, he finishes ahead of Dean McDonald, who finishes third for Greystone GT. Greystone GT back with Mackenzie Cresswell in fourth, Rodrigo Testa in fifth, ahead of Tom Leben, Pietro Armani in P7, Thomas Magjarsh as well down in eighth place. We have them further down Yaroslav Veselahau in 9th, and then Libor Malotta P10. Hubert Darmetko in 11th, with Ramirez in 12th, Bateman in 13th, Muller in 14th, Morgan Tilbrook then down with Marcin Jedlinski 15th and 16th, Michael Blanchimon in 17th, ahead of Alexander Schwarzer for FAC Auto Tech in 18th, then Andre Lewandowski down in 19th, ahead of Darren Kell, Scott Noble, Lauren DeMeas, John Monegro Reyes as well, with Mir Naran down in 24th place. And then further down we have Kalila Letlarka as well as Alfredo Hernandez, Marcello Hahn, Lars Peterson, as well as Andre Fernandez, and Andre Borodin sits in 30th ahead of Stanislav Jedlinski. So there we have it. Qualifying 1 now put to bed. We will be bringing you qualifying 2 later on this afternoon as we now make our way down to Parc Ferme. Christian Mansell, knowing that the job is at least half done for now, it's going to be all on Maxi Gertz later on, and they know what that means. Huge for the Motor Park team. What a stellar performance from the Aussie Diamond, Christian Mansell. A big lover of GT racing now these days since leaving Formula 2, but my goodness, what a career this young man has in front of him for sure. We'll need, though, to put the work in place when the race comes up tomorrow. But that's the reaction. Yes, he says, and for good reason. Perfect platform, Chris, for Maxi Gertz later on this afternoon.
Yeah, and that is a very strong effort to start off Team Motorpark's campaign. A little debrief here of the AF Corsa between Vincent Abril and Tommaso Mosca, trying to see where those 7/10 of a second came from as well, and where Mosca could have found that time. But certainly a very strong start for Team Motorpark.
Yeah, brilliant start. Of course, we're winners here last year with Levente Reves and Maxi Gertz, so they've got a good pedigree in this race. But a stellar performance and more to come. Dean McDonald, of course, will be in third. They'll be looking to bounce back after what happened 12 months ago. But that's all from us here in Q1. Join us this afternoon for Q2.